way that you think. I've thought about this for a while now, probably since I was really young. I feel like I've thinked differently than a lot of other people, and I'm not trying to put anything on me, like everything revolves around me, but that's kind of what a lot of people think since you were in your own mind, and that's what people usually go to when they first start thinking about this, but not as a full thought that they revolve around everything. But I've not started, I've thunk for a while, like, why do I think so hard into things? And I haven't been able to find this out for a while. Um, I kind of just think how I want to, and I have a lot of judgments about things, and not that anyone would like that or really care, but as who I am, I judge a lot, mostly because I am not that person, or I am not understanding of what the point of what I'm judging is. And, I can realize that what I judge is not very logical, or maybe that I'm wrong, but I do take into consideration that I can be wrong. Now, this has made me think a lot more about why do I think this way. And I'm sure a lot of other people have asked that, but I see it a little weird way. When you're thinking of who you are, you think of yourself as a person. And I've seen a lot of things about people getting into subjects of things about you are not actually who you are and things like that. And I saw a video called "You Are Not Who You Think You Are." I just said that made me kind of remember that everyone thinks differently. But I have this thing where I kind of just think a lot. I don't feel a lot. I'm a dry person. I I might not seem dry, or I might have moods like where I'm very outgoing, and I might have moods where I'm just nothing. I'm a cactus, and no matter what mood I'd be in, I still see the world in my own way. My own way is kind of gray, kind of dark. Not bad dark, but just monotone. I see the world as something that I don't know why I'm here. Not in a suicidal way. But when you're born, you're here with the thought and instincts of everyone else to survive. Animals, people, in anything. It's all just to survive. But when you really think about something of that sort, and you usually don't want to think that way because of it, but when you really think about it, you start coming up with all these things, all these different ideologies, and overall, uh, I forgot the word I was going to use. You just think of everything of why you're here. Sorry, I'm getting a little off track, and it's hard to think. Because I've never done this before. I'm really new to this, like talking about this stuff, and I can't really say my thoughts very well at all. I have a problem with that. But you when you think when you think, you realize a lot. You realize that not everything actually makes sense, or not everything should be this way, or not everything should go this way. You realize that humans have made up this world. They go by the rules they want to follow, and they've made it into something that you do currently follow, or that the world follows. And you realize, well, things could have gone differently, but we are so conscious as a human race that we make decisions for the entire world and go by it, or we make up things and go by those rules. And you see this with things like laws. Is it inherently bad to kill someone? Well, you take up the evidence that when you were born, you have this urge to stay alive and to not die. Your brain knows that dying means you cannot think, you cannot feel satisfaction, you cannot feel emotions, you cannot feel anything. You are soulless, and you are not conscious. That's the fear of dying when you are first born, and it continues throughout your life. So humans have essentially made up the overall observation of that and turned it into a rule, of which the people that want to die, which will cause distress, obviously, just bad things going on, and parties that might want to attack people will be taken care of, because it causes distress that was caused by the human brain. So anything that was caused normally by the human brain that you were born with usually is made up to be bad in the human head, and that's what the world follows, because you have all these things like laws and just, general things like really obvious things like you shouldn't rob a store because that's stealing, and you're taking away work that other people can make money from and make their lives better, because the only reason they're living is because of society putting in that thought that living is better than dying, because you have that urge that you are supposed to stay alive at birth, and that society has put in the thought of you being alive. Because let's say the earth loved death and never wanted anyone to be alive, and they had people, let's say, to just kill you when you get born or something. I don't know. But they supported suicide or something, and you had all these ideas of how you die or something, like normalizing suicide or death or just killing, then you'd have probably a different view. You'd say, well, it's not, well, it's allowed to do this, so it must not be bad. But when you take into account, like, let's say, cults or something that would brainwash people into, thinking that all these societally unaccepted things, like sacrificing, they brainwash them into thinking that it was good, because you're being taught that, well, death may be bad, it's for, let's say, maybe a good cause, or they're supporting it out of society, Because when you don't have a majority saying that this is bad, then you think that this is not going against anything, so it's good. And when you take all these thoughts, like I do, like I think a lot about kind of stupid things, um, just irrelevant things, to life. You kind of think to yourself, why do humans think like this? And that's kind of how I think about almost everything. Why do I think the way that I do? Why do I continue to follow regulations and things that humans have created? Well, it's because I don't want to die. If I died, I wouldn't be able to feel anything. I wouldn't be able to feel emotion. I wouldn't be able to feel touch. I wouldn't be able to feel happiness. I wouldn't be able to feel pleasure. Pleasure is what humans live for. Happiness. Because when you're sad or suicidal, you don't want to be sad, but you don't want to be alive. Because that's just what happens. I don't want to get into that because that's a different story to talk about. Not story, but overall uh, examination of that part of life. Um, so when you take all these things into account, you start thinking all these things, and you're like, wow, I'm probably thinking too much about this. You start thinking that way, maybe a little bit, or you just put it off. I've put it off, or I've never put it off. Um, it's shaped me in a way that I see the world as uneventful. I don't see the world as colorful as other people do. I see it gray in my mind. I see it as boring. Well, by human definition, boring in the fact that it does not give me pleasure. But that is not in the sense that I am depressed or I am sad. It just does not excite me. And it really makes you feel like the world is different than what others see. But you also have all these other factors, like, are you getting enough sunlight? Like, because your vitamin D might make up, you're probably just thinking negatively. Well, I may think negatively, and a lot of other people do, and I might not think the most societally accepted. Um, I do have ideations that a lot of other people don't really think about, and others might see that as, what's wrong with you, or you're odd, or it's weird, why are you thinking about that, or like, things that are not normalized, which is thinking about this stuff of why human brain does not, you know, function a different way. But you could think about this for every other way that the brain could think of. You're still going to think of unlimited possibilities of people thinking different ways. And that's why thinking about this is probably pointless. And talking about this is probably pointless. But you really start to think of it in a philosophic way of deeper meaning of this. And when you realize that this is useless, and it's never going to evaluate to anything substantial or useful, and you're talking about nothing, you're talking about a gray void. You're not talking about anything substantial to anything relevant at all, because it won't matter ever in the first place. But, you take that into account, but you don't take into account that you're alive for nothing. Because what you do as a person does not affect relatively, basically, almost directly anything at all in what we found to be the observable universe and past that. We are but just a single-celled organism, maybe an electron, to the entire size of whatever you'd call past the universe is. Um, so, you take thinking that what I'm talking about right now is useless, but when you start thinking about, well, being alive is useless because, well, you may take and do stuff that is taken eligibility to be worth time, and your work and your effort to be valued to something. Then you start thinking differently because, well, you're in that society. What are you ever going to do? And there's at some point where you just stop caring. And you don't think about this, which you don't need to. Because I'm thinking about something that doesn't need to be thought about. I'm thinking nonsense. Nothing that I'm saying makes sense. Because it doesn't. We don't know that. We don't know if what I'm saying is relevant. We might be completely past that. I'm getting off track. I see the world. I'm just gonna go back to what I was saying. I see the world as monotone. I see the world as gray. The world is not something that I particularly enjoy. The world is not something that I particularly partake in activities or parties of things going on because I don't find interest in them. Now, that's different from what other people think, because they think differently than I do, and that ties into you are not who you think you are too. Because I might say this, but other people might think of me differently, and I see others differently. And it makes you really numb to the fact that you feel the way that you are. When you feel the way you are, you think a lot about it. I have all these things. I have a PC, I have a phone, I have a guitar, I have friends, I have VR headsets, everything that could give me enjoyment in life. But it doesn't. And I don't know why. I can have everything. I can lose everything. I can feel everything. I can hear everything. I can think everything. But I don't think differently. I think the same way. I think the way I always have. I think that it's not eventful. I think that it's boring. I think that it's non-eventful. I think that it's... I don't think. I don't have a reaction. A lot of people say I'm unempathetic. I think differently about things than other people would, because let's say you have your entire family die in a tsunami and you're all alone with nobody. It wouldn't affect me. I'd go on in life. I'd feel nothing. I'd continue with the straight face that I always have had. And I would not feel a single thing. And it really makes me wonder, why am I like this? I don't know, because I can't evaluate that to myself, to something that I can form a complete conclusion on. Because there is nothing to think about. Because I go through those experiences just like everyone else. I have those times just like everyone else. But I don't feel the way that others do, like everyone else. Now, obviously, everyone's different. But you think differently than me, which makes no sense to me. Literally, I cannot think the way that you do. I might have a similar opinion, or I might think the same about a favorite band you have. But I cannot think the way that you do. And I cannot understand the way that you think. You do not understand the way that I think. I cannot understand the way that I think. I am talking about nothing right now. Nothing relevant, nothing that makes sense. But you keep on asking yourself these questions, and you don't get anywhere. Because when you have nothing to think about, and you are numb and gray to everything you experience, you can't come up with that conclusion. And it forms people. Like I was talking about earlier, you might not follow society's rules on things, on why, killing is bad. Because you've thought so much about the way you are, that you realize that, why does it even matter? Because you're in a world that you cannot leave societally. And you continue to wonder, why am I like this? And you never get the answer you want. I can't get the answer I want.